They say pressure makes diamonds. That night, it nearly crushed me. It was 10:02 in the evening when the firewall breach alert hit my monitor, a red flag blinking on a system that wasn't supposed to blink at all. The $21 million defense contract, 18 months in the making, was set to be finalized in less than 8 hours. One single compliance failure would sink the whole deal. I didn't panic. Not at first. I turned to the corner of the room where Lucas, our CTO, was hunched over a secondary terminal. "Did you see this?" I asked. He didn't even look up. "Yeah," he muttered. "False alarm. Logs show no intrusion." But something didn't sit right. I scanned deeper, peeled back the audit trails, and there it was, a vulnerability in our external endpoint integration. Real, exploitable, and invisible to anyone just skimming logs. I spun back to him. "This isn't a false alarm. We need to patch this tonight or we lose the contract." That's when Lucas stood up, unplugged his laptop, and slung his bag over his shoulder. "I'm done for the night, Olivia. It's late. This stuff always looks worse when you're tired." He left without another word. Just like that, no backup, no second set of eyes, no team huddled around to strategize or troubleshoot, just me, and a ticking clock, by 11:40. I had isolated the flaw. It wasn't just a firewall misconfiguration. It was a structural oversight buried deep in the integration framework, something I had flagged months ago, but was told wasn't a priority. Now it was. I tried calling Lucas. No response. I pinged the security analyst on Slack. "Already asleep. Ping me in the morning." His away message read, "There would be no morning, not for this deal." So I did what I always did when the room emptied out and responsibility refused to leave. I took over. Lines of code became weapons. Configuration files turned into minefields. Every second I spent inside the system made me more aware of how alone I was, of how heavy silence becomes when it carries $21 million in potential loss. My heart thudded as I repurposed encryption protocols and rewrote the compliance schema from scratch. Sweat pooled at the base of my spine. My fingers cramped around the keyboard. There was no room for error, no time for doubt. By 1:30 in the morning, the red flag was gone. But the weight? Still there. I wasn't just patching a system. I was holding together a company that didn't even know it was seconds from collapse, and I was doing it alone, by 2:05 in the morning. The office was so quiet I could hear the hum of the power strip beneath my desk. Everyone else had gone home, some 12 hours ago. A few had sent emojis and weak apologies before logging off. Lucas hadn't even bothered to reply. I stared at the patch I'd written and triple-checked the encryption layers. The vulnerability had been deeper than anyone anticipated, tied not only to the external endpoint, but also to the archive servers we'd left dormant during beta testing. I had to pull them all back online, rewrite their authentication logic, then redocument the new flow so it passed federal compliance. This was supposed to be a team job, but the team was gone, and the deadline didn't care. I opened my second energy drink and pushed my hair into a messy knot. Every part of my body ached, shoulders, eyes, wrists, but I kept going. Because there was no other choice. There wasn't even time to be angry, by 4:30. I'd finished the core patch. My terminal showed green lights across the compliance checklist. No more flags, no more vulnerabilities. I leaned back, exhaled slowly, and stared at the ceiling for the first time in hours. Then something made my stomach drop. A small notification popped up in the corner of my screen. Autosync proposal package submitted to client portal. Wait, no. I didn't submit anything yet. I scrambled through folders, pulled up the shared drive. And there it was. A submission confirmation timestamped at 4:27. It had gone out automatically, but the attached version was wrong. It was the draft version, incomplete, unpolished, unsecured. The system had used the previous sync because I hadn't updated the final tag in the metadata. My fault, my oversight, my disaster, for about 20 seconds. I sat there frozen, blinking at the screen, heart pounding. Then I moved. Fast. By 4:45. I had already recalled the submission, barely within the 1-hour window. The client system hadn't opened it yet, which meant I had exactly one shot to fix it before they did. I opened a blank document and started rebuilding the entire proposal from scratch. Not just a copy-paste. I needed to integrate the new compliance sections, rework the phrasing, match formatting, re-verify references. Every word had to be right. Time was slicing into my confidence like a razor. My hands shook as I typed, but I didn't stop. By 6:28 in the morning, I hit send. A quiet notification blinked on screen. Proposal uploaded successfully. Timestamp 6:28 in the morning. I sat there for a long time, watching the loading bar disappear. I didn't smile. There was no celebration, just a long, slow breath that felt heavier than it should have. I checked the hallway, still empty. No one saw the 12 different tasks I juggled. No one knew I caught the mistake seconds before it went irreversible. No one would read between the lines of that submission and realize how close the company came to disaster. And I wouldn't tell them. This was what quiet sacrifice looked like. No applause, no name in lights, just a woman in the dark, holding the line alone. Some people imagine victory as fireworks and applause. For me, it was just a dim screen, a flickering cursor, and the hollow thud of my own heartbeat at 6:45 in the morning. I pressed send. The final proposal, patched, rewritten, verified 3 times, launched into the client portal with a quiet whoosh. That was it. No drumroll, no cinematic music, just the end of 39 hours of straight work and a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying collapsing into my chest all at once. I leaned back in my chair and let my hands fall to my lap. They felt like stone. My legs twitched involuntarily, like they'd forgotten how to be still. The office lights were still dimmed from night mode. The sky outside had begun to soften to a pale, purplish gray. It was morning, but it didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like an end. I hadn't spoken to another human in nearly 12 hours. I opened Slack, dead quiet. A few away icons, a couple of status updates from marketing scheduled during the night. Excited to share our new milestone soon. They had no idea how close that milestone had come to disintegrating. I pulled out my phone, not really expecting anything, and saw one new message. Kara, UX designer. Hey Olivia, just saw your name on the repo updates. You're a beast. Let's catch up after launch. Kara, one of the good ones. She'd stayed late on Thursday and helped me track down a UI bug that no one else had noticed. She wasn't part of this all-nighter, but she cared. That counted for something. I typed back, "Thanks. Let's survive today first." Then I put the phone down. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. At 6:51, I walked to the tiny break room down the hall and poured myself the last of the stale coffee. It tasted like battery acid. But it was warm. The warmth reminded me I was still alive. I leaned on the counter, breathing through my nose, staring at the corkboard filled with faded team-building photos and outdated safety posters. One of them still showed the previous CEO. Smiling in a group shot I'd never been invited to. I had joined the company too late and worked too quietly to ever make it onto the wall. Behind me, the cleaning crew arrived, wheeling in their supplies. One of them, an older woman with kind eyes, gave me a polite nod. "You're still here?" she asked. I nodded, too tired to explain. She smiled. "Whatever you're doing, I hope it's worth it." I wanted to tell her it had to be, instead. I just said, "Me too," back at my desk. I refreshed my inbox. Nothing. Refreshed again. Nothing. It was now 6:59 in the morning. I knew I shouldn't expect a parade. I wasn't naive. I just thought someone would say something. A manager. A team lead. Lucas. Especially Lucas. I opened his calendar, empty for the day, no meetings until noon. I'd carried his job through the night, and he couldn't even check his email? The fatigue hit me like a wall. I dropped my head onto my folded arms and closed my eyes for just a moment. A soft ping snapped me back. I looked up. Subject: Proposal confirmation from Marcus Talbot, Lorne Defense Systems. Time: 6:59 in the morning. Thanks. All approved. Great work. I blinked. Read it again. Then again. It was just one line, no frills, no exclamation marks, just confirmation. But to me, it felt like a lifeline. Marcus was the lead contact for our $21 million deal, the one person who actually mattered in that whole external circus. And he had seen it, read it, approved it. He knew. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. My body was too far gone to register joy or relief. But I did sit up straighter, because for the first time in 39 hours, I didn't feel invisible. No one in this building knew what I had just pulled off. But Marcus did, and that was enough. For now, I don't remember pressing the elevator button. I just remember the sound of the doors sliding shut and the sudden pitch of silence, like someone had turned down the volume on the entire world. The overhead lights flickered, my knees buckled. Then nothing. When I woke up, everything was white, soft beeping, a plastic taste in my mouth, something cold taped to my wrist. I blinked at the fluorescent ceiling, trying to remember where I was and why it smelled like antiseptic. A nurse noticed I was awake. She moved quickly but gently. "You fainted," she said, checking the IV drip beside me. "You were found unconscious in an elevator downtown. Do you remember what happened?" I nodded slowly. "I work at Virion. I was going home, I think." She gave me a long, knowing look. "You were severely dehydrated. Blood pressure was dangerously low. Your body shut down from exhaustion. You've been here since 8:15 this morning." I glanced at the clock. It was almost noon. Only then did I realize. I still hadn't slept. Not really, Dr. Hayes, a tall woman with a calm voice and tired eyes, came in shortly after. She carried a clipboard and a cup of water. "You pushed too hard," she said simply. "Your vitals tell the whole story. No food, no water, no rest. Your cortisol levels are sky high. You need at least 48 hours off. No laptop, no phone, no decisions." I gave a weak laugh. "Not really an option." She raised an eyebrow. "Is it life or death?" I didn't answer, because to me, it kind of was, around 1:30 in the afternoon. The nurse returned with a lunch tray and a phone. "You've got a few missed calls," she said. "Want me to put your phone on silent?" I took it, flipped through the screen. 3 missed calls, all from HR. No flowers, no message from my boss, no check-ins, just an automated Slack message that read, "Team, remember to complete your time logs by 5 p.m. today. Thanks." I stared at the screen for a long time. Time logs. I'd given the company 39 straight hours of my life, and they wanted my time log. The door creaked open. I looked up, surprised. It wasn't a coworker. It was the night security guard from Virion, Mr. Lewis, late 50s, mustache, always carried a thermos of coffee and offered me a quiet nod whenever I passed him at 2 in the morning. Now he was standing by the foot of my bed, holding a small grocery bag. "I saw the paramedics take you," he said. "Thought I'd check in. No one else did." I blinked, overwhelmed. "You didn't have to come." He shrugged. "Didn't feel right, just pretending I didn't see it." He pulled a bottle of orange juice and a pack of saltine crackers from the bag. "Didn't know what you could eat, so I got the basics." For a second, I didn't know what to say. Everyone I worked with, the people who'd relied on me to save their contract, their bonuses, their reputations, They had disappeared the second I hit the floor. But Mr. Lewis, who I'd spoken maybe 5 words to in 2 years, showed up with crackers and juice. It hit me harder than I expected. "Thank you," I whispered. "Seriously," he smiled. "Just rest. They won't fall apart without you for one day." I almost laughed, but we both knew they already had. After he left, I sat with the juice in my lap, staring at the blank white walls. I didn't open my laptop. I didn't check my email, for the first time in days. I felt my body again, every ache, every knot, every pulse of fatigue that had been numbed by adrenaline. I was so tired it scared me. A nurse passed by later and peeked in. "You doing okay?" I nodded, then hesitated. "Do people come in here often for this? Exhaustion?" She tilted her head. "More than you'd think, especially people like you." "Like me?" She smiled gently. "Quiet ones, high performers. You'd be surprised how often they show up alone." I didn't know what would happen when I left that room, but as I sipped the orange juice, I knew one thing for sure. If I was going to fall, I deserved to be caught by more than a janitor and a botched Slack notification, and next time, I wouldn't go down quietly. I was discharged from the hospital at 10:02 the next morning with a doctor's note, a printed prescription for electrolyte tablets, and strict instructions to rest for 72 hours. I didn't listen. The second I stepped out into the daylight, I turned on my phone, and it buzzed nonstop. 17 Slack notifications, 3 missed calls from HR, 1 new calendar invite. Subject: transition discussion, employment update. Time: 9:30 tomorrow morning. Location: HR conference room, 4th floor. Attendees: Olivia Marlowe, Daniel Shaw, Aaron Koch, HR. I stared at the screen, confused but intrigued. Transition discussion? It sounded formal. Yes, but maybe it was just internal jargon. I had just saved the company's largest federal deal. Maybe they wanted to move me to a higher impact role. A promotion? A raise? Recognition? For the first time in a week, the idea of being seen, really seen, started to feel real. Back at my apartment, I made coffee and logged into my company laptop against doctor's orders. My inbox was flooded with internal emails, threads about launch strategy, congratulatory group messages, and one mass email from Daniel himself titled, "Pushing Forward with Excellence." My name wasn't mentioned, but I knew I was the reason that launch hadn't collapsed. I scrolled through Slack. In the Milestones channel, Kara had tagged me. "Huge thanks to Olivia for all the behind-the-scenes magic no one sees, but everyone benefits from." A few claps, 1 heart, a string of emojis. It made me smile, briefly. Then my phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't a work number, no contact name. The message was simple, 1 line. "Be careful, Daniel's planning cuts. You might be next." My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, rereading it 4 times, trying to make sense of it. Was it a joke? A warning? Someone messing with me? I typed back, "Who is this?" No response. The message disappeared within seconds. Deleted. My hands started to shake, not from exhaustion this time, but from something else. A sharp, creeping anxiety that coiled in my chest. Cuts? Me? It made no sense. I just pulled the company back from the edge of a $21 million disaster. I was the only reason the deal existed. Everyone knew that, didn't they? That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk rereading the invite, trying to rationalize it. Maybe transition meant something good. Maybe Daniel wanted to restructure the team and elevate my role. Maybe that anonymous message was someone being dramatic, someone bitter, someone wrong. Still, I couldn't help but pull up Daniel's public calendar. It was mostly empty, except for one entry that caught my eye. Subject: private. Exec cuts. Final draft. Time: Yesterday afternoon. My mouth went dry. At 8:50 the next morning, I stood outside the HR conference room, clutching my notebook and a copy of the proposal I'd submitted, the one that saved the deal. I'd highlighted key changes and printed client feedback, just in case they wanted to review the impact. I'd even worn the navy blazer I usually saved for executive presentations. "Hey!" came a voice behind me. It was Erin from HR. She smiled politely, holding a tablet. "You're early." I nodded, heart racing. "Just wanted to be prepared." She gave me a neutral nod and opened the door. Inside, Daniel Shaw was already seated. He didn't stand up, didn't shake my hand, just nodded. There was no presentation clicker, no agenda sheet, no folder with my name on it. That hope I'd carried into the room, it cracked, but I wasn't ready to let it break. I sat down, straightened my back, and tried to meet Daniel's eyes. I didn't know what this meeting was anymore, but whatever it turned out to be, I was ready. The HR conference room was always too cold. Not cool, cold. The kind of cold that sat on your skin like a warning. A stillness that made you want to cross your arms even if you didn't feel like folding. The blinds were drawn. The long table looked freshly wiped, but the chairs hadn't been pushed in properly, like someone had left in a rush. I took a seat across from Daniel, while Erin from HR sat to the side with her tablet. No one said a word for a moment. Then Daniel looked up. His suit was crisp, his expression flat. He didn't blink much. His voice was calm in the way that made you feel like anything emotional would be labeled unprofessional. "Olivia," he began, "thank you for joining us." Not "thank you for saving the deal." Not "we appreciate what you've done." Just a sterile acknowledgement of my existence. "We've made the difficult decision to eliminate your position. Effective immediately," he said. I didn't respond, because in that moment, I couldn't breathe. Erin chimed in, almost too gently, as if her voice could soften the execution. "This decision is part of a broader structural adjustment. Your severance package has been prepared. We'll go over the next steps shortly." I was still frozen in place. My brain tried to catch up. This was a mistake. They didn't mean me. This was the kind of conversation that happened to people who missed deadlines, who coasted, who clocked out early. Not to the person who submitted a life-saving proposal at 6:45 in the morning, after 39 hours of work, followed by an ER visit. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I reached into my folder, pulled out the printed copy of the revised proposal. I submitted this 3 days ago," I said. My voice came out quieter than I intended. It secured the contract." Daniel didn't even glance at it. "Yes, we're aware the client approved it, and we appreciate your contribution. But the company is shifting focus. We have to be leaner." Erin nodded, folding her hands neatly. "This isn't a reflection of your performance." "Then what is it?" I wanted to scream, but instead, I looked down at the copy of the report still sitting in front of me, my work, my formatting, my analysis, except something was off. I blinked. Then I saw it. The author line at the top, submitted by Lucas Graham. There was a pressure building behind my eyes, a low hum in my ears. I stared at that name like it had burned a hole into the page. Lucas hadn't even stayed that night. He left at 11, shrugging off my warnings. And yet, somehow, his name was on my work. Daniel didn't look surprised. Erin didn't look at it at all. I swallowed, slowly, deliberately, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Lucas submitted this version?" Daniel raised an eyebrow. "We're not here to debate authorship. The project succeeded, and that's what matters." That's what matters. That's all I was to them. A function, a task completed, a ghost behind someone else's signature. "Can I ask one thing?" I said, my throat tight. Erin nodded. If I hadn't pushed that final version, if I hadn't caught the security hole, Would this deal have gone through? Daniel exhaled. That's speculative. What matters is that it did go through. That was the moment something cracked inside me. Not loudly, not violently, but quietly, like a snapped bone beneath skin. They continued talking about severance, NDAs, turning in my badge, but their words felt muffled, like I was underwater. I stood slowly, folding the document back into my folder. My fingers shook slightly, but I kept my back straight. Thank you, I said. They both looked up, surprised. I just needed to know where I stood. And now I did. As I stepped into the hallway, Kara stood by the elevator, holding 2 coffees. She'd just arrived. She looked startled when she saw my face. Everything okay? I didn't answer, just shook my head once and stepped inside the elevator, behind me. The doors slid shut. The air inside was warmer than that room, but somehow I still felt cold. I returned to the office the next day, just after lunch, quietly. Without announcement, I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't even want to be noticed. I just wanted to pack up my things, turn in my badge, and leave like a shadow passing through a place it never belonged to begin with. The hallways were busy. People were chatting near the kitchen. Someone was setting up balloons for a team birthday on the UX side. The overhead lights buzzed softly, indifferent to me. I walked past 3 people I'd worked with for over a year. None of them looked up. Maybe they hadn't heard yet. Maybe they had. Either way, no one said a word. My desk was exactly the way I'd left it. 3 sticky notes still clinging to the monitor. A half-full water bottle beside my keyboard. And a folded hoodie I'd used as a makeshift pillow more times than I could count. I sat down slowly and opened my drawer. Inside was the framed photo of my mom and me at graduation, the one I'd brought with me on my first day at Virion, back when I thought I'd found a place that actually valued people who worked in the background, who didn't need to shout to prove their worth. I set it aside and began clearing the rest, carefully folding papers, untangling chargers, sorting pens I wouldn't need anymore. No one came by. No one asked why I was packing. At 2:15, I got a Slack notification from Kara. Just heard, please tell me this is some kind of mistake? I stared at the message, not knowing how to respond. Before I could, a soft knock came from behind me. It was Jonah, an engineer 2 rows down I'd helped during a server rollout last quarter. Quiet, awkward, brilliant with back-end scripts. He held a manila envelope in one hand and looked unsure if he should be standing there. I just wanted to say thank you, he said. For that night you stayed late to fix my deployment issues. I never forgot that. I blinked, caught off guard. Thanks. Jonah, that means a lot. He hesitated. I'm sorry this happened. You deserved better. Then he left. That was it. 1 sentence. And still, it meant more than anything I'd heard in the last 2 days. I turned off my monitor and stared at the dark screen, my own reflection barely visible. For a moment, I wondered, was I really that easy to replace? 39 hours. A near collapse averted. A $21 million deal secured. And yet, no goodbye email, no final team message, not even a generic best wishes. Not even Lucas, whose name now sat on top of my work, had said a thing, if I had mattered. Wouldn't someone have said something by now? The silence echoed louder than any dismissal. In the lobby, I turned in my badge to Maria at reception. She glanced at it, then at me. You're leaving? I nodded. Effective today. She looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry. You were always one of the kind ones. Her words were gentle, but they didn't fill the hollow space inside me. I pressed the elevator button. My reflection in the brushed steel doors looked unfamiliar. Shoulders slightly hunched. Eyes dulled. I had thought walking away would feel empowering. Instead, it felt like evaporation. As I stepped inside the elevator, I found myself whispering a question I hadn't dared ask aloud until now. If I was really that good, why didn't anyone fight for me? The doors closed without an answer, and for the first time in years, I wasn't sure I was worth saving. 3 days had passed since I left Virion. I hadn't touched my laptop. I hadn't opened Slack. I hadn't answered the dozen messages that trickled in. Kara, Jonah, even Aaron from HR asking if I wanted a post-transition exit conversation. I didn't. I spent most of the time on my couch, wrapped in a fleece blanket, letting the television play documentaries I didn't watch. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just floated. The kind of emptiness that comes not from pain, but from no longer knowing where you're supposed to be. Then, on a quiet Sunday afternoon at 4:27, my phone buzzed with a notification that didn't look like spam or a subscription reminder. Unknown number. Text message. Hi, Olivia. This is Marcus Talbot from Lorne Defense Systems. Are you available to talk today? Just 10 minutes. I'll keep it short. My eyes froze on the name, Marcus. The lead on the $21 million deal I had nearly destroyed myself to save. I sat up for the first time in hours. I replied instantly, yes. Any time after 5 works. He called at 5:02 on the dot. His voice was warm, clear, and straight to the point. No pleasantries. I just found out you're no longer with Virion, he said. I'll be honest. Olivia, we were blindsided, and not in a good way. I stayed silent. I wasn't sure what I was allowed to say. He continued. You were the reason we signed. You earned our trust. You saved our timeline. You knew the infrastructure better than their own engineers. I blinked. Thank you, I said, my voice hoarse from disuse. There was a pause. Then came the line that flipped something inside me. We don't trust them without you. To be blunt, that contract only went through because of your oversight. Without you, we're reconsidering the entire deal. I gripped the edge of the couch, stunned. I hadn't expected this. Any of this recognition, let alone loyalty. From the client? I asked cautiously. Are you saying you'd be open to rerouting the project? Another pause. Then, we've already had initial conversations with Renix Tech. Nothing final, but if you were involved on their side, we'd move fast. My heart thundered in my chest. Renix Tech, Virion's biggest competitor. They'd want to speak with you first, of course, Marcus added. But if you're willing, I'll make the intro myself. After we ended the call, I didn't move right away. I just sat there, blinking at my phone like it was some kind of trick, but it wasn't. It was a turning point, quiet, but seismic. The first time in weeks I felt the fog inside me lift. Someone saw me, not just saw me, but knew exactly what I was worth. That night, I walked 2 blocks to the old bookstore cafe I used to work from back when I first joined Virion. The same barista, Lexi, was still there. She smiled when she saw me. You haven't been here in forever. Yeah, I said, breathless. But I think I'm back. I found my favorite corner table, opened my laptop for the first time since leaving, and pulled up my old project files, versions, frameworks, contingency plans. None of it was proprietary, just the invisible skeleton of the infrastructure I had designed, the bones of a deal I had held together with no sleep and sheer willpower. Then I opened a blank document and wrote 2 words at the top. My terms. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting to be chosen. I wasn't begging to be seen. I was writing the rules, and I was just getting started. By Monday morning, the old version of me, the woman who waited for permission, was gone. I sat at my desk in the corner of my apartment, sunlight pouring through the window, a fresh mug of coffee by my side, and a single goal in mind: rebuild everything I'd once built for them. This time for myself. I opened the external hard drive I used during off-site project work, my personal archive. not company-owned, not protected under any NDA, just the raw intellectual output of years of late nights and early mornings. My frameworks, my logic trees, my annotated contingency models, the foundation of the $21 million deal, down to the line-level architecture, had started on this drive. I opened the folder labeled LDS Core Olivia and stared at it for a long moment. No one had seen this but me. As I clicked through, I remembered every moment behind those files, how I'd caught a misalignment in Lorne's server handshake protocol at 2 in the morning, how I'd redesigned their endpoint encryption from scratch because Lucas insisted the vendor's patch was good enough. I smiled bitterly. Good enough nearly cost the company the contract. And Lucas, he got credit. He got to stay. But I had something they didn't know I still held, the blueprint. At 10:08, my phone buzzed with a new email notification. Subject, private. Need to show you something, from jonah.m@virintech.com. Jonah, he was the quiet back-end engineer I once mentored, the kind of guy who rarely spoke but always noticed. I opened the message. Hey, Olivia, I know this is risky, but you deserve to know. This got passed around dev chat, and I pulled the original from a meeting archive before they deleted it. You didn't hear this from me. J. Attached was a single audio file. I hesitated. Then hit play. Daniel's voice crackled through the speaker. Look, she served her purpose. The contract's done. No reason to keep her on the payroll when we can trim that line item and shift the credit. Lucas was smart to move first. She should have seen it coming. A second voice, Aaron from HR, sounded tense. Unsure. She's not just some contractor. Daniel, she was useful. Now she's excess. The file ended. I stared at the screen, rage and clarity intertwining in my chest. I had been called many things in my life. Quiet, intense, too committed. But excess? No. I had been the keystone in a multi-million-dollar deal, the architect of stability while the rest of the structure wobbled, and they had discarded me like debris from a finished bridge. But now, I wasn't debris. I was the architect. I spent the next 5 hours reviewing my archive, reorganizing it, polishing it. I created a visual proposal, outlining my system improvements, my adaptive compliance logic, and my unique integration strategy that had stabilized Lorne's infrastructure. It was professional. It was clean. It was mine. By mid-afternoon, I renamed the folder Olivia Marlowe Proposal Confidential, and I added a cover slide with a title I never would have dared write inside Virion: Strategic Infrastructure Proposal, Proprietary Framework by Olivia Marlowe, prepared for Renex Tech, Lorne Defense Systems. I took a break, stepping onto my small balcony with a slice of cold pizza in hand, staring at the city that hadn't changed one bit, though everything inside me had below. People moved about their lives. Coffee runs, lunch breaks, commutes. But I stood taller now, because for the first time since I walked out of that cold conference room, I didn't feel erased. I felt loaded, ready. Later that night, I sent one email to Marcus Talbot subject, follow-up plus proposal. Outline, Hi Marcus, as discussed. Attached is a sample of the infrastructure plan I originally built and led for your team. Happy to speak with Renex Tech's CTO when you're ready. I'm prepared to lead this transition. Properly this time. Warm regards. Olivia Marlowe. I closed the lid of my laptop slowly and whispered aloud to the empty room. Let's see how useful I really am. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes. It begins with a simple phone call and a name spoken with the kind of clarity that leaves no room for negotiation. Good afternoon. This is Olivia Marlowe. I'd like to speak with someone from executive strategy, preferably your CTO or operations lead. The voice on the other end, a receptionist with brisk professionalism, paused. And what is this in reference to? An opportunity to secure the $21 million Lorne Defense Systems contract, permanently, but only if it's me leading the integration. Another pause. Please hold. 2 minutes later, I was transferred to Dana Whitlow, COO of Renix Tech. Her voice was sharp, but not unkind, used to high-stakes calls, not flattery. Olivia, she said, we've been expecting this. That made me blink. Excuse me? She chuckled. A low sound. Marcus reached out yesterday. Said you might be in touch. I didn't expect you to wait this long. I took a breath. Steady but sure. I've reviewed my original technical architecture. I have a proposal ready to execute. But I don't plan to be buried in middle management this time, if I join. It's as the lead architect and project director, full control of delivery, vendor oversight, and direct access to client leadership. She didn't respond right away. I let the silence hang. Power doesn't rush. When she spoke, her tone had shifted, respect now coding every syllable. Funny thing, she said. We tried to recruit you 6 months ago, remember? Quiet inquiry through a third-party recruiter. My stomach tightened. I did remember. I'd turned it down without a second thought. I said no, I admitted. I was loyal to Virion. Well, Dana said with a shrug in her voice, we're glad they didn't deserve it. She requested my revised proposal. I sent it within 15 minutes, along with the executive summary I'd polished the night before, within the hour. She looped in Renix CTO, an intense but surprisingly open-minded man named Felix Grant. Our video call began at 3:05. It lasted 43 minutes. By the end, the offer was on the table. Here's what we can do, Felix said, folding his hands as he leaned forward on the screen. We'll absorb the infrastructure work immediately under your guidance. Full title, Director of Defense Integrations. You'll report directly to Dana. We'll bring in your preferred team. And yes, if Lorne agrees, the contract transitions with you. Dana added, we'll finalize the paperwork by tomorrow morning. Compensation will reflect your position and what Virion failed to see. I nodded slowly, heart pounding but face calm. There's one condition. Felix blinked. Go ahead. I don't want this to look like sabotage. I'm not here to smear Virion. I'm here to deliver results, quietly, professionally. Dana smiled. That's exactly why we want you. After the call, I sat still at my desk, the city glowing orange outside the window. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something to happen. I was the one making things happen. My phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus. Just heard from Dana. You've got our full support. I'll let the legal team sort the transition. But Olivia, this time, we want your name on everything, before closing my laptop. I opened a blank document. At the top, I typed project codename, Phoenix, and beneath it, lead, Olivia Marlowe. Status, active initiation, date. Today, because this wasn't a comeback. It was the beginning of something entirely new. And this time, I wasn't building for anyone else. I was building for myself, on my terms. The first headline hit the wire at 7:13 in the morning. Lorne Defense confirms contract transition to Renix Tech following internal restructuring at Virion. There was no mention of me, no drama, just a short quote from Marcus about realignment and strategic fit. But those who knew the system, who really knew what went on inside Virion, would read between the lines. By 9:04, I received a message from Kara. Is this about you? I didn't respond. By 10:42, 3 more headlines followed, each a little sharper than the last. Virion loses $21 million contract in surprise shift. Leadership under scrutiny after sudden staff departures. Former Virion engineer now leads defense rollout for rival firm. That one had my photo in it, from a panel I'd spoken at last year. The caption underneath simply read, Olivia Marlowe, now director at Renex Tech. I didn't have to imagine the panic inside Virion. I knew the rhythm of that building, the way chaos rippled like a fault line under cheap tile. At 11:02, I got a call from Jonah. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. Hey, just so you know, Daniel pulled the exec team into a crisis meeting this morning. No one saw it coming. He looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. I almost laughed. Inside Virion's top floor, the boardroom was tense. According to Jonah, and later confirmed by an internal leak that landed on Reddit of all places, Daniel stood at the front, red-faced, waving a printout of the headlines. "We lost this deal because of her," he spat. Someone from sales reportedly replied, "No, we lost it because you fired her." The room went silent after that. Aaron, ever composed, apparently tried to steer the conversation back to risk control, but it was too late, because that was when Lance Coulter, one of the quieter board members, spoke up. "This isn't the first red flag from your corner, Daniel. We'll be reviewing the full sequence of events that led to this decision, including your role in it." That statement changed everything. By noon, I was sitting at Renex Tech's downtown office, reviewing system integration timelines with Marcus and Dana in a closed meeting room. The sun poured in through full-length windows, bright, steady, clean. While we went over critical milestones, Dana paused and looked at her phone. "Looks like Daniel's facing internal review," she said casually. "Virion's board isn't happy." I said nothing. Marcus smiled across the table. "Poetic, isn't it?" I finally spoke. "Let's stay focused. The rollout's bigger than any headline." But I couldn't stop the small, satisfied warmth that bloomed quietly in my chest. Later that day, Kara messaged again. "You really did it, didn't you?" I replied. "Oh, I did my job. They forgot who it belonged to." That evening, I sat alone at my kitchen counter, legs folded underneath me, sipping ginger tea, no confetti, no champagne, just peace. My inbox was overflowing with vendor emails, client updates, a draft contract for a new AI-enhanced logistics feature Marcus wanted us to explore. I'd never been busier, but it was a good kind of busy, the kind that meant I was exactly where I was supposed to be. At 7:21 that night, I got one last email from Executive Assist at viriontech.com. Subject, no subject body. Daniel would like to speak with you briefly if you're available this week. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I clicked delete. No reply, no rage, no need. Because the damage had already been done. And this time, I wasn't the one who broke. The elevator doors opened to a quiet ding, and I stepped onto the 17th floor of Renex Tech headquarters, my heels clicking against polished marble. The late morning sunlight slicing across glass walls like clean decisions. People nodded as I passed, not with forced politeness or empty smiles, but with something I hadn't felt in a long time: recognition. This was my first official day as Director of Defense Integrations, and I wasn't here to learn the ropes. I was here to lead. A young associate named Ethan met me at the entrance to the project suite. Fresh suit, nervous energy, clipboard in hand. "Good morning, Director Marlowe," he said quickly. "We've set up the project hub just as requested. The client review is at 11. Conference room B is prepped, and Marcus will be joining via secure line." I smiled. "Thank you. Ethan, let's get started." Inside, the room was simple but deliberate. Clean tables, smart boards, a large screen already displaying the Lorne Defense logo. And at the center of the table sat a single folder, one I hadn't touched since this project first began at Virion. The same contract, the same mission, but this time, everything was different. At 11:01, Marcus joined the call. His voice came through clear as ever. Olivia! Good to see you back where you belong. I nodded. Let's finalize what should have been done right the first time. We went through the new rollout schedule, integration checkpoints, and contingency frameworks, my frameworks, not watered down, not credited to someone else, mine, in full, at 11:43. I initialed the final compliance addendum, and at 11:57, I signed the full contract package. This time, the signature line read, Olivia Marlowe, Director of Defense Integrations. Renix Tech. I closed the folder. That quiet click of paper against leather was the only sound in the room for a few seconds. And yet, it was the loudest win of my life. By early afternoon, I was in my office, real office, overlooking the skyline, setting up a dashboard of cross-functional teams. I'd already handpicked 3 engineers I wanted to bring in from my old networks. Kara had messaged me the night before. If a spot opens at Renex, I'm listening. I'd replied, sit tight. Because of course she'd be coming. And not alone. Around 3:08. Ethan poked his head in. You have a visitor, said you'd recognize the name. He handed me a small envelope. Hand-delivered. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No letterhead, no signature, just an email printout. From Daniel Shaw at viriontech.com. Subject, let's talk. We'd like to discuss the possibility of you returning to Virion in a senior leadership capacity. There's interest from the board. Would appreciate your time. I folded the paper, set it aside, and went back to reviewing my onboarding roadmap. Not out of spite, not even out of satisfaction, but because I no longer needed anything from them. At 5:05, I took the elevator down alone. I wasn't in a rush. I wasn't staying late to prove myself. I wasn't scrambling to clean up someone else's mistakes. I stepped out into the street, the wind lifting the edge of my coat, and paused at the corner. The sky was soft and gold, the kind of light that makes a city feel gentle for once. Behind me, the building glowed with my name on the door. In front of me, the world didn't seem so heavy anymore. They expected me to break, instead. I built. They thought they could silence me. Instead, I rewrote the narrative, in silence. I didn't sabotage them. I didn't scream. I didn't send revenge emails. I didn't leak a word. I just walked away, and they collapsed all on their own. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with your head held high. Olivia's story isn't about revenge. It's not about proving people wrong with noise or anger. It's about knowing your worth, even when others try to erase it. It's about rebuilding from silence and letting success echo louder than anything they ever said about you. There's something deeply empowering in realizing you don't need permission to lead. You don't need to beg for a seat at their table when you have the blueprint to build your own. To anyone watching this who's ever been overlooked, dismissed, or told you were too much or not enough, remember, the people who truly recognize your value won't need to be convinced. And the people who don't, they're just part of the chapter you outgrow. You're not too late, you're not too small, and you're not broken. You're just getting started. If this story spoke to you, even just a little, leave a comment below. Have you ever walked away from a place that didn't deserve you? We'd love to hear it. Share your story. Subscribe if you want more stories like this, raw, real, and deeply human. And if someone you care about needs this reminder today, send it to them. Quiet strength is contagious. We'll see you in the next chapter. And until then, walk tall.